item, which is tab 5, and I'm going to turn the the, uh, the floor over to our Director of Planning, Community Development, Economic Development, and all the other titles she carries, uh, Rachel Benson. Welcome, Rachel.
Hi, how is everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, so I am here tonight to talk about the MBTA communities, the bylaw that's in front of the public hearing is tomorrow night with the planning board. I know it's been a while since we first presented on this. I think at that time, the regulations that the state was still working on, they were in draft form. So, but now, 2 years later, the state has, finalized those. So I do have a presentation. I can see if I can do that. All right, let's see. I'm going to first try it here and then ask to share my screen. Okay, let's see. Always this presentation view. Not that one, that's the one. All right. So, multifamily zoning for Wrentham. Oh, I thought I had it, but I didn't, guys.
We could see it.
Like, all right, do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, so just a little bit. Are you seeing introduction, presentation overview? Awesome. All right, this is going good already, guys. All right, so just a little bit introduction, what is an MBTA community? Why was Wrentham designated? What are the compliance requirements? Where are we proposing those locations? What is the density? What do we do if we don't want to comply? FYI, you can't really not.
Yes, you can.
Some clarifications and next steps. I'd like to get through my presentation, and then we can take questions at the end if the Board of Selectmen wants to. So as part of the economic bond bill that was passed in 2020, the town of Wrentham, along with 177 other communities, were designated as an MBTA community. And so what that means is, we have to zone for 50 acres near an existing downtown or village center and allow multifamily housing by right without age restriction, suitable for families with a gross density of 15 units per acre and a unit capacity of 750 units. This is not a production mandate, though, so we do not have to, these units don't ever have to be built. And it's also not related to Chapter 40B, which is, affordability. So over the past year, I've worked with some of you on the board, as well as the planning board and consultants, to identify areas that meet the state's compliance model. The deadline for Wrentham to adopt it is in December of 2024, this year. And if we don't comply, we'll be ineligible for grants and loss of points for other competitive grant programs, as well as the Attorney General has stated that failure to comply will result in civil enforcement action. So this is just a little bit of the law, and where Wrentham sort of fits in, we're defined as other communities served under Section 1 of Chapter 161A, and those are just some other communities, our neighbors, that are also designated in this one. Also, as part of this, 170 municipalities were given different levels of what you have to do to comply. Wrentham was identified as an adjacent community because we don't have any transit stations within our borders or within a half mile of our border. But a lot of the communities around us, adjacent to us, have MBTA stations, such as Norfolk, Franklin, and now Foxborough, most recently. And this is just a little colored map of all the different designations, levels, and then a circle where we are. Along with why were we, and then this is also just a little bit more what was included in this Chapter 358 Acts of 2020. So the housing choice reform, some money for transit-oriented development, neighborhood stabilization, but the housing choice zoning reforms is where we were put in there. And so again, it's just changing sections of Chapter 48, which is the Zoning Act, and allowing, for these definition of MBTA communities and requiring multifamily housing as of right, and plus other requirements. And just an overview of the actual text of the law, if you want to read that through. This is just reiterating, MBTA community has to have at least one district of reasonable size that allows multifamily housing as of right and be suitable for families with children, no age restrictions. Density of 15 units per acre. That's also doesn't usurp the wetlands protection or Title V. And then again, adjacent communities, we have some other requirements for locations that we have to adhere to. And so just some of the examples of if we fail to comply, housing choice, we won't be, that was a grant that we just used to do a downtown wastewater treatment facility feasibility study. The local capital projects fund, is 10% of that money that comes in through that. I think it's the gaming, is a subsidy to housing authorities. Mass Works infrastructure program, which I think the last time Wrentham had that was the 2.2 million for the Route 1 water line. And as I said before, the state has included non-compliance with this MBTA communities as a loss of points in other very competitive grant programs. So what is this reasonable size? Reasonable size for most communities is 50 contiguous acres. They have now sort of said that your largest, you can have separate districts. One of them has to be 25 acres and the smallest can be 5. What is multifamily housing? What do they sort of define that as? A building with 3 or more residential dwelling units, or 2 buildings on the same lot with more than 1 residential dwelling in each unit. As of right, it just means that as long as that project meets the zoning, then it can go through. Right now we have it as a site plan approval, so the planning board will still get to look at it. However, it's nothing that they can really deny. And then housing suitable for families. So it just means that you can't, set a bedroom size or number of bedrooms on there, or a number of occupants. And so for what we're proposing for the June amendment, everything pretty much matches up with the Chapter 40A. Actually, it does match up for that. So allows multifamily housing as of right with a site plan review. So the planning board will still get some stay in like aesthetics, lighting, some parking. We've put 2 proposed locations and the board can decide which one. Either way, it's a gross density of 2 locations, 15 units per acre, no age restriction, no maximum bedroom size or counts. And their 2 districts are the downtown and Wampum area. They're both near existing downtown infrastructure. And so what is an adjacent community? I think I already went over this, so I won't go over it again. But so because we don't have an MBTA station, that means we have to locate this zoning in areas that have, reasonable access to transit, if we have any, or existing street patterns, or areas that are already an existing downtown center. So that's where these were all the areas that we sort of looked at throughout this year process. And we've gone through and sort of, as we ran these through the state's compliance model, some of them fell off and didn't match. And so they've moved through. I have some slides that show that. So the proposed 2 locations, one is downtown. Again, it meets the adjacent community requirement. It's in our downtown, existing downtown, and the Village Zone B language, the existing language, already pretty much matches the state requirements. For this one, we reduced the units to 8 per acre because that was similar to what we've had a proposal of a project come in. And that's kind of what's been comfortable with these working groups with the planning board has seen. So we didn't want to do anything more than that. And then the only thing we would have to change is adding the mandatory mixed use in that, which isn't standard in the States. And then the Wampum 495 area. There's a couple existing multifamily developments over here, probably about 16 units. I think there's another one as well. And it's close to 495, easy commuter, hop on the highway and get to the commuter rail. Also near Wampum Corner, which is an existing, well, albeit small, but, downtown business district. 22 units per acre, 25% lot coverage. And again, this is just an overlay zone. It doesn't affect, if somebody wants to come in and do a single family subdivision, they can still do that. If somebody wants to just build one house, they can still do that. This is just another option for them if somebody wants to come in and develop. So these are some of the ruled out locations. First, this is the Wrentham Development Center. Publicly owned land is defined as excluded under the state's guidelines. And if you're going to use it, it needs prior state approval as well as be included on your housing production plan. Wrentham's housing production plan, it was before it was called that, was expired in 2010. So that is out. The Beach Street in Hagopian, there's another project being proposed here, but there's a lot, it's a very sensitive area with wetlands and yeah, so we wouldn't have been able to make that unit count here either. And it's not really near any existing downtown or any sidewalks, infrastructure, not really a place good for families. Well, people do live on this street, so it is obviously good for families, but Green Street, this is commercially zoned. Didn't think this was appropriate to put a residential on a commercial zone where we're a split tax rate town. It's also not consistent with existing uses in that area. Well, you'll get further down on this road, you'll see some, single family homes, something of that size probably wouldn't fit in that area. It's also not near any downtown village center, I guess you could say the outlets, but I live in this area and walking is not very fun down here. And again, Eagle Brook, you couldn't make the model work with all of these small lots out here. And so we couldn't get that density on this one. And this was, that's the last one. Oh, Chestnut Street. This was something somebody had come in and looked at. Again, there's a lot of slopes back here. It's not in a really good area. A&R lots back here, all single family homes, not really good infrastructure. And again, this is another one where it's commercially zoned, Route 1. There's not really anything in here, for amenities, I would say, or infrastructure as well. So now what is this going to look like? Trust me, guys, it's 12 minutes in. So as part of this MBTA communities, each multifamily zoning district must satisfy both the unit capacity as well and the gross density. And what are both of those? Saying a lot of words right now. So a unit capacity is taking a lot and pretending it's not developed. So even if it is developed, what could that, the model just runs it as if there's nothing on it. And what could that lot handle? And so that's how you get your unit capacity. Wrentham, again, is we have to have 750, or the zoning has to be able to handle 750 units. And then gross density, this is about the whole district. It's not just each lot, which here, as it explains, that's net density. So it takes the whole district, and the average of that has to be 15 units per acre. So you could have less dense, more dense, so long as both of those districts average out to be 15 units per acre. So you can see here, if the town wanted to do both, downtown and Wampum, 8, 22, 30 divided by 2, 15. It's 15 units per acre. And so here's just some examples of what 15 units per acre could look like. This is the Avalon in Sudbury. Again, 15 units per acre, total of 250 units. It was 17 acres. I think this is part of a larger multi-phase project too. Has some, I think, assisted living in it, some commercial as well. The park at Medfield, this is a little bit closer. Again, 15 units per acre, 92, 6. Both of those two were built under the 40B, but that's the closest thing I could find. And then Grant Place in Natick, this one actually used some existing buildings in the area. But this is 20 units per acre, so that's getting a little bit closer to what the wampum would be. And then this was the proposed downtown development. This is unapproved. This is just what the developer has sort of been reviewing with the planning board and the board of selectmen. Very early stages. And this is with the underlying zoning. So the village zone B already allows this development. And so what if we don't comply? So if DHCD, which is the Department of Housing and Community Development, it's now called Housing and Livable Communities, determines that an MBTA community is not in compliance with this, we will not be eligible for funds. And again, from those 3 or 4 grants, but the state has also included non-compliance as a consideration in many other competitive grants as well, where MVP is one of them, where it's a very competitive program. And in the past, we have lost out by 1 or 2 points. And the Attorney General has already issued a statement that clarifies those communities who choose not to comply will be subject to civil enforcement action. And so this is just an excerpt from that. And again, when I PDF this, that you can select the link and you can go on there and read the full statement. So these are just, again, some of the other grant programs that the state is now considering compliance in. So those are a lot of grants that I've used and the town could use as well in furthering its master plan and then other projects as well. And then again, you can read when I put this up on the website, you can go ahead and you can read through those articles as well. So again, just to reiterate, this is it's not requiring us to build these. It's only requiring us to zone 50 acres. It's not going to compel us to design or pay for infrastructure to accommodate these future projects. It doesn't mean that the districts have to have a uniform density. So again, as I said, we've got proposing 8 on the downtown, 22 in wampum, or that can change. Just so long as the average is 15 units per acre. It doesn't supersede the Wetlands Protection Act, nor Title V. You still have to adhere to those. And it does not allow municipalities to get a waiver or an exemption from the requirements. And what they're trying to do is just remove the barriers through zoning to allow for housing, because housing is in a short supply around the Commonwealth. And so we may not see development for years. As you know, I'm sure you've seen multiple things on the planning board's agendas that have been on there for a while. It takes a while to develop things and projects of this size. And a lot of communities are actually doing the work. They're actually, adhering to these regulations. But, some press coverage has led us to sort of believe that that's not happening. And the capacity analysis is conducted by us, and doesn't mean that the production has to happen. So again, that goes to my earlier one. Just some links. I have the draft zoning amendment on the webpage there. Submit your, take a look at it, submit your comments to planning@wrentham.gov. And and the planning board will review those. And they may make changes during, the public hearing process. But again, any changes that are made will be up on that website. And after that, the zoning board will submit their recommendations, which gets sent to town meeting. And then the article would hopefully be placed on the warrant for the June town meeting. And then once the article passes, the bylaw is then submitted to the state attorney general for review and approval, and then DHCD for compliance. And so I also have some resources here. And then let's see, I will stop share. And I think that's the end of my slideshow. Whew, sorry guys, 17 minutes. I try and be quick. But
All right, thank you,
means...
Rachel. I just I want to thank you for the time and effort put into this. And I know my comments may not be harmonious to what your presentation is, but I just ask you, I have to do as I feel is right. I don't think anybody who lives in Wrentham, who moved here like I did 34 years ago, or looking to come to a community that had ties to the MBTA, we came for what Wrentham had to offer. The charm, the open space, the schools, and the state has come to us on many occasions. We just went through a grueling exercise with the master plan to talk to our residents what they want. And I don't recall anybody asking for this. There was asks for affordable housing. And what I mean by affordable is not low income, but housing that our kids could stay in the community and live here, because currently we don't have anything. When this first came to us, we wrote a letter saying we weren't going to comply. I still feel the same way. When it goes to town meeting, as it's presented, unless I see anything different, I will get on the floor and tell the people not to vote for this, because I feel it's not right. It's a mandate that does not comply for what Wrentham is all about. And for them, because we have a commuter rail in our next community, we could have had the commuter rail in our town, but the residents chose not to. I feel that we need to fight the fight. I know you say it's an unwinnable fight, but the town of Holden just won. Milton is going to a vote next week. If you Google this, there is a lot of people out there fighting this, more than that are complying with it. We have the point at Wrentham, 16% vacancy there, which, in the grand scheme of things is not a lot, but it's 16% vacancy. So we don't have a full apartment complex. I am on board with what's proposed for a Village B. I think that's a well thought out development, but that's enough. I don't think we need to do more, and I don't want to see more. And I'm willing to stand up and say to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that I'm not going to comply with this, and they can do what they want. But I think for them to come down and tell us that we have to comply because we have an MBTA in our neighboring community is not right. That's just the way I feel. I'll open the floor to the rest of the board members. Select Board Member Gallo.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you for that. I agree with your sentiments. I appreciate Rachel's effort, and I appreciate the hard work into it. But let's call this what this is, in my humble opinion. This is an unfunded mandate. They're not saying to us, hey, we want to work with you on housing, and we're gonna pay for sewerage for downtown. We're gonna pay for the additional police officers, EMS, DPW, wells, infrastructure, roads. They're not offering us anything. They're saying do this, or we're gonna take things away from you. So I think that's an unfunded mandate. A few of the major points for me that are concerning is, I heard this a few times now, that the units never have to be built. Well, that's ridiculous. If I'm a developer and I have zoning, and I happen to be in real estate for a living, and I have zoning that says you can build a single family house or you can build 15 units per acre, what do you think the developer is going to do? And at that point, they don't even need to go through the planning board. Rachel just said that. All they have to do is have the planning board review the site plan. But the planning board has no authority at that point. So we're giving up all of our voting, all of our authority, you mentioned the master plan. Why the hell did we spend all this money and time on a master plan? when the master plan just went out the window, because this is not what the residents asked for. So I staunchly have major issues with this. The development downtown that has gotten good support is 8 units an acre. 8 units an acre. What we're saying is that developer, if this zoning passed, could literally come to us and say, hey guys, guess what? I changed my mind. We're now going to double the size of that development and put 15 units an acre. And they would be able to do it. So we have major issues. I have personally have major issues with this. I think, again, we need to push back. And I think all of the communities in the Commonwealth need to push back and see what we can accomplish together, united. But I will say this. I do think we have to start having worst case scenario conversations so that if we do try to push back and fight and lose, we have contingency plans in place. But I 100% am against this. It's, didn't we just vote at town meeting overwhelmingly that we thought the power should stay with the people? The residents should control what happens in our community. This makes that look like this is way bigger than that. So again, my humble opinion, I'm sorry if I'm upsetting anyone. This is how I feel. I'm not speaking for the board, but I have major issues with this. And with that, I digress, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Select Board Member Gallo. Select Board Member Harrington.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So I have mixed feelings about this. The downtown development is going to be a similarly large project. I don't think as a community we want to block families from moving to our town. If we have the ability to allow denser population, nobody's going to come in and say, we're going to do this. We can still control what it looks like. I don't like the idea of the state mandating the issue, but it's done correctly. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And I think we need to have a lot more discussion than this wonderful presentation that Rachel put on prior to making a decision on it. That's it for now.
Thank you, Bill. Select Board Member Rouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Rachel, thank you for your presentation. I also have very, very strong opinion about this proposal. I am not in support of it. I have a couple of concerns. First of all, they're dictating what we have to do in the town without doing any sort of studies, no impact studies for what this will, how it will impact schools, traffic, infrastructure. Again, I will reiterate what Chris says. This will be rezoned and there will have to be no approvals for what can be done. So we'll have no control. I was a proponent for the town meeting in December for our right for democracy. I feel as though the state is threatening us with taking away different grants when the state is in budget trouble as it is. So threatening us, I'd like to see us come together with other communities, other towns, the Holden, the Miltons, the other towns that have not been mentioned, and see what we can do to push back on this mandate and even make some sort of change to what is being proposed. We have a right as residents of the town of Wrentham and the state of Massachusetts, but more the town of Wrentham, to make decisions that impact this town and our residents without being dictated by the state and the government. So I also agree that I don't think this is a very good plan and I will not stand for it. Thank you.
I want to take an opportunity and I just want to ask a question for each of the Select Board members. And I'll start with Select Board Member Chris. Chris, why did you move to Wrentham?
Joe, I moved to Wrentham because I found Wrentham by accident one day. My wife and I were coming home from church and we decided to go on a ride, and we kind of just, we were coming from Norwood. We were coming down 1A and we said, let's just keep going straight. I want to see what's going on. And as soon as I crossed over into downtown Wrentham, I immediately, my wife and I both immediately asked Caitlin, we immediately just said, wow, there's something special about this place. The charm, the look, the feel, it's different. It's not cookie cutter. It's not one size fits all. It's a loving, you can just tell it's a loving community, and It's a place that we, honestly, we right then and there said, we're going to start looking for housing in Wrentham. And I live in West Wrentham. I love where I live in town. And the reason I love it is just because we have a mix. I feel like we have an awesome mix in this town of keeping our old charm, but at the same time, moving in the right direction forward, right? We all know we need development. I'm a real estate guy by trade. I'm all for common sense development. This is not common sense. This is insanity, in my humble opinion. So I'll leave it there, Joe. But that's why I moved to Wrentham.
Thank you. Bill, I'm going to ask you the same question if you don't mind.
So honestly, my wife and I both are originally from Dedham. Dedham was a very, very small community, much larger in landmass, but it was a very safe community. It was a great place to grow up. And when we started to look for a place to live, we were very fortunate that the realtor showed us this particular house that we ended up buying, and it's exactly what we wanted it to be. Wrentham to me reminds me of what Dedham was when I was a kid. It was a community. It was very small. They had great sports, great schools. Everybody knew everybody, or if you didn't know them directly, you knew them somehow. It was just a very, very, very safe community to grow up in.
So you hit the key. You hit one of the keys in what I'm trying to get across. You moved here because Wrentham is what Dedham used to be.
That's right.
Michelle.
Yeah, very similar story to Chris's. Tim and I were traveling up the 495 corridor. I grew up on the Cape, so I wanted something easy access to go visit family. We were going in and out of towns, drove into Wrentham Center, immediately looked at each other and said, this feels like home. Immediate charm, the culture, just this overall feeling. And the more we drove through the town, we have felt that way. And 25 years later, we still feel that way. We are blessed to have been able to raise our children here. It's such a wonderful community, and that is why we came here and will stay.
Now I came here 34, well, actually it was close to 35 years ago, and started looking at homes. My wife and I were getting married. We lived in Rosendale. We weren't married at the time. We wanted to live in West Roxbury, which, as we know, West Roxbury is unattainable. We looked in Dedham, we looked in Westwood, we looked in Norwood. We kept working our way out. And my wife said, the one thing that's missing is there's no kids on the street playing. When we grew up in Rosendale, there was kids playing on the street, but we couldn't find anything we could afford in Rosendale. So we kept looking and looking, and my wife says, the realtors took us to, Walpole, Sharon, Plainville, Foxborough, Franklin. And my wife's like, I don't see kids playing on the street. We drove down my street. There was kids playing everywhere. And it was like, she was like, this is home. This is where we want to be. This is the community we want to be. That's what we want to preserve. We all have the same story why we came here. And I think if I ask anybody else, I see people's names like Tom Maloney and Mr. Moronsky, new to Wrentham, coming from Norwood, Walpole, they chose Wrentham. Rebecca Zidmore, I see her on here. Rebecca moved from out of state to come here. We all have our stories. Our stories are similar. And I think our job is to fight to keep that charm and to be in control of it with a planning board that can oversee and make right decisions. Like a lot of people over the years that said that you're not friendly. Well, it's not that we're not friendly. We are probably the most friendly community out there, but we want to preserve charm. And I think we saw it, when even on when we had the zip trip, the people were in awe from Fox and what a great town we have. And it's a great town. Everybody knows your name. And it's something that it's as I always say, Rachel, you can quote me, Wrentham has that certain je ne sais quoi. And it's something that definitely, I know a lot of people are chiming in, and please, I know there's hands going up, but I only can fit so many on my screen. So if I miss them, I apologize, but I see somebody going by the name of CC. And who would that be? If you can state your name and your address.
My name is Carolyn Castellano. I live on 97 Archer Street. So I abut the Village project. I live right on that little pond if you go down Archer Street. But I just really, I'll show my face, I don't care. I just wanted to say I'm really happy to hear your comments, because I do believe there should be some development in that area that abuts my property, but like, I didn't move here, and I've only lived in Wrentham for 5 years from West Roxbury. That I didn't move here to live next to a bunch of townhouses and stuff. Even in West Roxbury, I go down Center Street in West Roxbury. They're jamming in spaces everywhere. There's a parking lot. It's like huge apartment buildings. But I'm basically just saying thanks. I'm really like excited to hear what you had to say about the projects. And again, I do believe that there should be some development back there, but you know, that we should have the control of what it looks like. So thank you.
So you're a fellow Bostonian.
Yes, I commute to Brookline. I'm a high school teacher at Brookline High School. So,
God bless you.
and I'm really excited to live here. I've really enjoyed it. So
We welcome you.
yeah, I know. Well, thank
Is there
you.
anybody else who would like to speak? Just raise your hand, and I will definitely. I'm scanning my screen back and forth, looking for raised hands. Paula Sullivan. You're on mute, Paula. Paula,
On.
there you are.
Hi. Some of you might know me from, I've been on the Wrentham 350th committee. And I'm what you call OFD. So I was originally from Dorchester. But we had moved out here, and when a realtor shows you a house in Franklin and then one in Wrentham, they all look like, oh, it's small town. But Franklin definitely wasn't a small town. It was a growing town. And this is exactly the kind of thing that they never did. They never put the brakes on. They never said, let's think about it. They just said, okay, that farm just got sold, let's develop it. And they'll put in a whole bunch of houses on 1/4-acre lots. And this town has been very careful in its growth. And I think you guys, the way you're approaching this is, it feels good to me as a 25-year resident, that you'll continue to keep the mood of this town.
Thank you, Paula. I know Vicky Hall wanted to speak. Vicky, could you?
There we go.
There's Vicky.
Yes, I want, Vicky Hall, 65 Jones Street. I also, border, Lake Archer, similar to the teacher from Brookline, and moved here 3 years ago. I have lived in many places, including Rosendale, West Roxbury, and they all have charm, right? But nothing's like this place. So I really appreciate the select board being kind of on the resident side here. So thank you.
Thank you. Now, Tom, I know Tom Maloney, he had his hand up briefly and it went right down. Tom, did you want to add anything? I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought I saw your hand up.
No, I didn't have my hand up,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. If I did, it was an accident. It's just the computer's fault.
Okay, I always blame the computer for everything in my life.
Thank you. We'll be checking in with the public hearing with the planning board tomorrow too. But you guys, thank you very much for the sentiments you've expressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. If there's no other comments from the public,
Mr. Chair, I don't want to digress and take up too much time, but can I just have a minute?
well, certainly.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate, and I think I came across this way. Certainly, this is not the town that devised this up. It certainly is not a staff proposed thing. I just want to make sure that the public is aware of this. This is not something that any of us are proposing. In fact, quite the contrary. I personally have written letters of opposition over the last 2 years. I've signed on with this board on letters of opposition during the comment period. We unfortunately have been dealt with a situation, as I think Selectman Gallo kind of highlighted, as a really truly an unfunded mandate. The difference is when we've started going through this process and the state has continued to move the needle. And it's my job to advise the board and make sure we, as much as possible, protecting the town. And I say this only just so everybody is understanding of what that impacts. We're not talking about, at least the way the threats exist today, We're not talking about solely grants. If it were grants and things like that, we've had this conversation. I say, keep the grants. I don't see, as Selectwoman Rouse pointed out, I don't see us qualifying for any Mass Works grants, certainly no time soon, those type of things. So those aren't really the concern. I just want to be transparent. What we're talking about is the state has truly dug their heels in. The Attorney General's office, and if I could just read just a small couple of sentences from this, just came to the town of Milton. I just received this today. From the Attorney General herself. As a matter of state law, compliance with this act is not optional. We have clearly and consistently advised. My office will not hesitate to compel compliance with the MBTA Communities Act through legal action if necessary, should a municipality refuse to comply. In closing, we are eager to work with the town to meet its legal obligations should the town chart a course in contravention of state law. However, the Attorney General's office will carry out its responsibility to enforce the law without hesitation. Now, this conversation has been happening amongst, obviously municipal managers for the last 2 years. And, this whole state's position of a one size fits all clearly doesn't work in Wrentham. And we've clearly been vocal and clearly opposed to it. I just want to be transparent that moving in this direction is going to mean likely whether we can get other communities to join on or not. That's kind of to be determined. Middleborough came to the state flexing and they quickly digressed and abided by it. They thought they were going to go into Boston and say we're not complying, and they quite honestly have changed their tune. Now I know there's the Hopedale situation that's still kind of playing out. I just trying to be transparent on the advice of whether this is the direction we go or not. We could potentially be looking at serious litigation funds that just aren't budgeted for, that we will have to have if we go this direction. Would have to have those conversations. So it's not a matter of strictly we're not eligible for grants. There's the real threat that they're continuously holding on to, that there will be civil litigation filed against any community that does not comply. So it's my duty to make sure that that this board and the community is aware of those things. And then as a community, as a board, we need to make those decisions, however, whichever direction that may be. But I do want to just reiterate, we're not talking about what we were 2 years ago, where it was just grants. And then it became, at that time, I suggested we just put the whole thing on the state property. I'll be long retired before the state ever makes any decision on a disposition of the state hospital. That was an easy thing. And then they caught on to that quickly and they said, well, you can no longer do that unless the state agrees. So they've recognized that there's a housing shortage throughout the Commonwealth, and they're going to put it on the backs of every municipality that meets this MBTA component. And unfortunately, that's what we're left to deal with. It's just, from Rachel and our standpoint, we're trying to advise accordingly and come up with a plan on how we address that. I think all the sentiments and, statements and opinions, we also agree and recognize. And, we've been fully supportive of those sentiments. And again, I just want to make sure that the public is aware that may not have missed or may have missed this in the presentation. This is not something that the town of Wrentham is proposing. This is in a response to a mandated law requirement, not a situation of grants or anything like that. It potentially could turn into significantly more than that if we go that road. So just wanted to share that, Mr. Chair, and make sure that the whole public is aware of what we're discussing.
Well, thank you. And I want the public to realize that what Rachel has done her job. We hired her as a planner. Something is put in front of her. She has to present to us, and she's done a great job. Kevin, I agree. You've done a great job. But, this is a democracy. We bring this to town meeting, and the residents will vote. If the residents vote no, we have no control over it. Because I think a lot of residents feel the way we feel. And we'll have to deal with it. I am not going to tell any resident of Wrentham, you have to vote because of the threats. I'm going to tell them you have to vote based on what you feel in your heart. And I think that's the route we have to go. And I think we have to be prepared because the passion in Wrentham is so strong for this community. It's not just the houses. And we're not saying we don't want to comply. We don't want to comply with the density levels. They're too egregious. If they would reduce the density levels, we have no problem. I'm not speaking for the other board members, but I'm comfortable with what's proposed for Village Zone B. I do agree. We do need to have some multifamily homes, but not at that density. We need them for young families. It's just, my daughter lives on the Cape. She would love to live in Wrentham. I know Bill's got, married children that would love to come back here if there was a more affordable. Luckily, his daughter was able to make a move and get here, but he has 3 sons that I'm sure would like to come back to Wrentham. Michelle, your kids are young, and they may want to invest in Wrentham and give back to the community that they grew up in, and raise their kids here because of the experience they had. And we want to make sure that that opportunity is there. But by them mandating, what they're mandating is not allowing us to do that. What allows us to do that is to have a strong planning board that can forecast and plan our future based on the information we have in our master plan, and forecast that way. And that's what it's about. It's not like we're putting our feet in the sand because the state come down and says you have to do it. No, it's because we know what the people want. We talk to the people every day. I saw Joe Stewart. His comment is the same on social media. We need to have homes where our kids can stay here and live. We don't have that. That's our problem. And affordable housing is defined differently in communities based on, what you have. But people came to Wrentham, and we have an open space committee for open space, not for very dense communities. So, Rachel, I appreciate everything you do. I really do. I may not agree, but I know why you're doing it. And it's don't hate the player, hate the game. It's the game we got to play with the state. And Kevin, the same thing. But, we're going to leave this up. It's going to go to an article at town meeting. And if it passes at town meeting, the people of Wrentham want it, then I think we understand what the people want. It's a democracy. If they don't, then we have to steer the ship through the storm. But we need to get more information from other communities. Like I said, Holden was sued by the AG's office, and the AG lost. So I want to get more information on Holden and see what happened there. Don't threaten us. Just work with us. That's what the state should be doing, is working with us and not threatening us.
Absolutely. And I wonder what, Mr. Chair, if I may, I wonder what would happen if the courageous town of Wrentham banded with some of these other courageous towns and continued to stand up. Maybe other towns would get more confident and say, we're not going to take this unfunded mandate either. And we're going to fight. And imagine if we had, let's get the news coverage on that, on how many towns are fighting this unfunded mandate. And sometimes, my grandfather once told me that sometimes you got to punch the bully in the eye. You can't just be pushed around all the time. So we know what's best for our community. We have 9,000 voters who know what's best for our community, not some person who sits in the State House. So let us determine what's good for our community. Why do we have home rule? Why do we vote anything if that's the case? So that's my point. And again, Rachel, I think you do a great job. This is not a, like Joe said, this is not an attack on you. This is not an attack on any on the town. We know that this was something that was put on you and you're just doing your job. But we have to defend the best interests of the 9,000, of the 12,000 residents, 9,000 voters. And I can tell you that people that I talk to, people that support me, I haven't met one person that was for this yet. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, Rachel, you wish you were watching Dancing with the Stars or something else, right?
No, that's okay. It's a True Detective is what I'm watching now. So
okay.
Night Country.
So,
That's a
Mr.
good
Chair,
show.
tomorrow night is this presentation is going to be with the planning board for residents to also participate in and ask questions.
Yep. There's a public hearing tomorrow, so it's another opportunity for people to speak. So, based on what you heard tonight, I encourage you tomorrow evening to log on. Is there limited seating in that Zoom meeting tomorrow to 100 people, or do we have unlimited? I know some of our Zooms have limited.
I honestly don't know. I'll double check that to make sure. And I'll also, put some other safeguards in place similar to Amanda did.
Yes.
But I also do invite you to review the draft zoning bylaw as well. If there's anything in there that you want to add to make it stronger. If in the worst case scenario in your that this ends up getting passed, I guess, in your eyes, then you at least have something, a bylaw that reflects kind kind of what you want. So whether it be now or years from now, I just recommend you taking a look at the draft bylaw, because again, they'll have to meet that bylaw for the project. But yes, tomorrow at 7:15, there's a lot of other things on the planning board's list. But yeah, that'll be on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And just one thing before we go is it just brought me back when we had a presentation from Tremel Crow for a 40B or apartment development at 495 and 1A. And the one thing he said is just wait until the state, forces you to do this and see what happens. That's what we're afraid. If we do it, they will come. I know you say that it doesn't have to be done, but if we do it, they will come. So we have to be prepared for that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
someone asked a very good question in the chat. Who can the residents call and voice their support or frustration with regarding this zoning law that they're trying to enforce upon us? Do we have contact information? Is it the AG's office? I'd love to have 9,000 or 12,000 residents give them a jingle tomorrow and let them know their opinion on this.
I think a letter to our state senator and our state rep might be helpful, that they can show that the support they're getting, the anti-support for this. Because, I know our state rep, Marcus Vaughn, is with us this evening, and I thank you for joining us, Marcus. But our state senator is not. So
Becca Roush, so we can give the people Becca Roush's information, email address, so you can find it. You can just Google it and find that. I would also recommend Marcus Vaughn. I would also recommend go to AG Healy. Contact her office directly.
she's
Why
the
not?
governor. So
She's
I'm
the
sorry.
governor.
Yeah,
we have a new,
I'm sorry. The governor, go to Governor Healy's. That's what I meant. Governor Healy's office. Even better.
Because, it's, I think we have to fight the fight, because it's, Wrentham is strong. Wrentham is a strong community.
It's not going to, Mr. Chair, I don't think it's going to stop here. That's the issue.
Exactly.
You don't stop here, it's going to keep going, and the mandates are going to come, and who, next thing you know, we lose complete control of this town.
Exactly. All right. I just want to make sure. I just saw another chat pop up. I just want to make sure we address everything. Yep. Someone recommended we go to our state senator, which we definitely will reach out. And this is really a good discussion. I appreciate everybody, listening in, the input we got. We thank you all. We still have some more stuff. Our next discussion is about Tri-County Vocational High School Building Project debt schedule. So speaking of, something that we're going to have to be incurring, I'm going to turn it over to, we're on tab 6. I'm going to turn it over to our town administrator, Sweet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just wanted to have a discussion